Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. Happy Wednesday to you and your family. Taking a look here at Bitcoin, seeing what's going on, and obviously helping understand best practice and big picture in situations like this. We can see a pretty consistent continuation here on the 4-hour time frame. We're about 7 4-hour candles into this continuation, albeit fairly ugly with this doji candle forming right now. That's mainly because of CPI data. Okay, so CPI data came in just a little bit lower than expected, which is typically a good thing. And ultimately, we saw this large increase to almost 31,000. It dropped down to 30,400. So it's an interesting little dynamic right now. But what we're going to do is talk a little bit about big picture overextension, kind of see if that's in the cards, and obviously look at some high block capital data here as well. And again, obviously, if you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor, love teaching people to trade. If you want to become a better trader, cryptocash.tech is a site, link down below. So what we want to look at really quick here, first of all, really important, be sure to check out this exclusive event here from BingX. We got a nice offer essentially until the 31st of July. Thank you again, BingX, for providing this. It's basically no KYC or VPN required, and you get a nice $50 plus $100 bonus if you just basically deposit $50 and trade 3,000 USDT. Pretty simple and easy to achieve there. So congrats again to our members for that. Now, what I want to look at with Bitcoin is, let's start with the big picture, and let's go ahead and look at a few other key factors too as well. So I think it's important to recognize, Bitcoin dominance still being pretty high. Okay, so as this continues to remain high, altcoin dominance will continue to kind of go sideways. I wouldn't say necessarily down, but we're noticing right now that Bitcoin dominance being as high as it is, not a lot of altcoins are surging. We're seeing a little bit here and there, but not a tremendous amount. So we're a little ways from that. And keep in mind, Ethereum is typically the first one to start taking off when Bitcoin dominance comes down. We should expect Ethereum dominance essentially to increase. Okay? That's usually the first step in alt season. I get that question a lot, so I figured I'd throw it out there just so you know what that means and why that's relevant. Let's take a look quickly at high block capital data too, and kind of see if there's anything stark and obvious here. For the lack of better terms, there's not a lot going on in the back end here, kind of standard behavior. And what I mean by that is, we got liquidation data kind of just telling us we're drawing even right now. We got just as many longs and shorts getting liquidated. We can see as well that whales are less active. Okay, and now this is something that is fairly interesting to me because the fact that when we see the price decrease in value coming down closer to 30,000, whales become more active. When the price goes above 30,000, they start to kind of stay on the sidelines and wait it out. So retail is the one pushing the price to the upper 31,000 range, the upper 30,000 range, closer to 31. And then, of course, whales get active around 30,000. So there's a lot of support there at 30,000. It's kind of what it tells us. But the bottom line here is if you look at its history, whales are much more active when the price is down than when it's up. Okay, so do with that what you will. So take a look at the longs here. We can see more longs getting closed today than opened. And we can see the equal amount of shorts being closed than open. So we kind of got this indecision at the 31,000 range or upper 30,000 range, effectively telling us that we're not quite sure. Today, fear and greed index is actually quite high. It's much higher than before. I think that CPI has a lot to do with that. If we take a look here, of course, at the last 12 hours in open interest for our longs, we can see a lot of longs are hedged right there at about 30,700. So they're pretty much at break even, just barely in the green. And then if we see the shorts, I'm willing to guess it's pretty similar. They are just barely in the red. Okay. We had some shorts up here closed out. They took some profits. But the bottom line here is that those in the 30,700 range, we're in at 30,600. I think that's going to be a point in which we need to kind of see the price close soon here below that level. Today, what we want to look for is a closure below 30,000, I would say 800 at the very least, preferably 30,006. But what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about that because this is a Fibonacci retracement level here at 0.618, and that's right at about 30,800. So you can kind of see the price working within this range here for the moment, and that would be a point that we want to make sure to either close above or below, depending on the direction that we're going to head, right? So again, if we plan to, if you plan to take a long, wait for the daily candle to close above that level. I would wait a little bit longer too, honestly, because the Asian markets have been wreaking havoc late at night here in the States, or of course, depending on where you're at, obviously. But generally speaking, that's something to pay attention to. All right, so we got all that kind of out of the way, right? We got the overall sense here that there's no bias to the upside or downside right now. Whales are kind of hanging out on the sidelines, and we got CPI data coming in slightly positive. That said, if we take a look at the daily, we can kind of see here that our RSI is effectively right in the range that we want it to be. Okay, so again, we're not testing any resistance levels. We're starting to see the money flow index coming up a little bit. That is positive to the upside here. Okay, we can also see stochastic kind of swinging upwards, so we're in this general uptrend for the moment, and we could expect that to continue until it doesn't, right? Trends have a tendency of doing that. Take a look at the MACD here. We're starting to converge slowly but surely. So all in all, not really too much to note here. Let's take a quick peek at the moving averages. We can see the 20-day SMA holding fairly strong here today. The price candle wick all the way down there. Look at how almost exact that is. The price wicked perfectly down to that 20-day SMA. Okay. So again, it does tend to hold in place for a lot of reasons. Yes, we did close a couple days here close to that level, but generally speaking, the overall sense here is that we're staying above that trend line. That's ultimately positive for an uptrend here. Not saying that we're just going to explode to the moon here, but that is a consolation, if you will. So if you are in a long position, that should help you feel better. Whatever helps you sleep at night, right? So take a look here at the 4-hour. See what we can got here going on. Really a similar scenario here as well. We're still maintaining above all three moving averages. The 200 is working its way up to that 29,000 range. So again, as I've mentioned before, if we do have a pullback, I don't think it's going to be massive or significant. I do think the 28 to 29,000 range will hold fairly strong when it comes to support. If we take a look here, of course, at the RSI, we can kind of see here that the RSI is creeping up, getting closer to 70, but nothing's really definitive here at this point. Okay. We can also see, of course, the MACD is kind of going sideways as well, for lack of better terms. We're not seeing an increase or a decrease, and that's really just one of those things we kind of got to pay attention to. To me, when we see this kind of continue for a long time in the one direction, it makes sense for it to turn itself around. Yeah. So to me, I'm still leaning a little bit more towards the price pulling back here because we are overextended. I showed this previously. We're at a 7 on TD sequential with a doji candle forming here. Anytime you get closer to a 9 or 7, 8, or 9, if you will, the price will typically go the other direction. Okay, so for the most part, on the 4-hour time frame, Bitcoin is fairly consistent with hitting an overextended state and then turning itself around. We've noticed that, and the main reason why we're seeing that a lot is because this range-bound activity has a tendency of causing that to happen. It's not like a momentous trend, right? It's just the price is getting rejected at certain levels, and we stick within that 30 to 31,000 range. Okay, so again, no matter how we look at it right now, we are still effectively range-bound. And it kind of sucks because it's less fun, less exciting, right? It's kind of boring, but there's a lot of money to be made in those channels sometimes. It depends on who you are, of course. We've been able to take some decent profits on our day trades and our BingX trades. Oh, speaking of which, too, make sure you double check and utilize, if you are using, again, this is BitGet, not BingX, but BitGet. It's another one of our affiliates here. We do have a trading competition active right now, $5,000 prize pool. We got 30 days to compete, so honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but if you want to go ahead and get in there and essentially start trading, you can. We got some decent traders here, increasing their volume as well as, of course, their profit and loss ratio, but it is a tough market right now. There's no doubt about it. So again, I'm not recommending you overtrade or trade too much, but generally speaking, trading competitions are nice. You get that extra little prize pool just for kind of being an active trader. Right? So a nice little benefit there. That being said, on the hourly, let's wrap this up here. What we're looking at is kind of messy on the TD sequential here, or just in general. Look at all these ugly candle wicks. Now, granted, this is CPI data here, but you see tons and tons of manipulation, right? So it happens all the time. Unfortunately, we're seeing this kind of stuff just yank up, liquidation hunt, price comes right back down to where it started. So I wouldn't be surprised if we still see a pullback here. But again, this is somewhat of an ascending pattern here, and it does look like the price wants to try to break out to the upside, just based on smaller time frame patterns. Again, the smaller the time frame you go, the less likely the patterns are to fulfill themselves. So keep that in mind. An hourly chart pattern isn't necessarily the most definitive, but with all these really ugly candle wicks, I think that we're in a position right now where some type of position will be taken, right? So we're either going to break up or break down. My money is on breaking down, just based on the overall trend and the fact that we have a fair value gap in the 28,000 range. I think there's a lot of little reasons why we're going to see the price pull back at least to that 28K range. I think 28.5 would be a pretty good profit target. That's one of my profit targets personally. Once again, the price could shoot up, hit all the stop losses, and turn right back around. It does it all the time. So please be careful. For us, we have kind of a lofty stop loss. Again, it would be a larger loss, but the likelihood of it hitting 32,000 or higher is fairly low at this point. So again, just depends on how you look at it, right? Obviously, as soon as this video or this recording is completed, the price will probably shoot up to that level. That's just the way it goes, right? You kind of got to deal with it. I mean, we took a small loss yesterday from comp, I think it was. It's right back down to our profit targets now, but it shot up, of course, and hit the stop loss and turn right around. It's very, very common for that to happen, and the key is to not get discouraged when that does occur. Yes, it can be frustrating and upsetting because it's just kind of like oh man, I wish I'd done things different. But you got to play your cards right and make sure that the losses you take are smaller and the gains you take are bigger. It's just kind of the bottom line. Again, I teach all that in my trading academy. Okay, so let's summarize. Sorry, went off a tangent there. On the hourly, we saw on TD Sequential we are overextended on the 4 hour rather, not the hourly. Hourly is getting some decent resets here, so we're not like in this position where like the price is just going to turn around because it's too far in one way, right? It could literally continue to go up. But once again, we're 7 4-hour candles, or basically a full 24-hour period of bullish continuation to the upside from this low level of 30,100. So in that sense, the last 24 hours have been fairly bullish. Based on us being range bound, it would make sense for the price to pull back down. But again, I wouldn't be surprised also if we see 31,000 retested before that happens, just based on the natural ways in which these liquidation hunts are occurring. Wicks up to 30,000, 31,500, turns right back around. Like it's a really common occurrence. Complete garbage, in my opinion. This is just terrible trading opportunities. And again, there's not really a lot of breakouts. So I do think that with us compressing into this tight range for so long, we're going to see a breakout soon. In Bitcoin's history, we've never seen anything more than 4 weeks worth of range-bound activity. And we're coming up on like 2.5 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we're getting there. Another week or so, I think we're going to see a pretty definitive direction. All right, the very last thing we want to kind of wrap up with here would be maybe the cloud, because even though we are range-bound, we're still ascending, and we're in this trend here. So truth is, we're above the Ichimoku cloud, which is good. Lagging span, however, is within the price section or soon to intersect within the next 12 to 24 hours. So again, today's trading day is fairly important. A closure below 30,800, I think, would give us a definitive direction down. And obviously, if we significantly close above this level, it would make sense for us to essentially use that as a new support, and the price goes up from there. So a few different things could happen, of course. So I think it's recommended at this point to wait for the candlestick closure. If you want to get in at this point, I still feel that shorts are more appropriate than longs at this level, just based on us being kind of hot in the upper range of this range itself, right? So again, different strokes for different folks. Maybe just wait for a good long position if that's the kind of trader you are. Again, buying it at 29.9 or 30,000 has seemed to be very beneficial in the overall sense of this trend here. But there's no definitive direction here. We're not massively overextended on any time frame. CPI data came out, and the price is trying to figure itself out right now. And in truth, it's always best to kind of wait on the sidelines for situations like this. Wait perhaps for the price to come up here to fill this fair value gap up here, and then of course short from that top if you want. Right? We have an average price between 30,600 and 31,000, and slowly be averaging our price up for a nice little short to the bottom. Okay, again, that's just what we're doing as a community. You don't have to do that, and in fact, you want to take trades based on your own risk tolerance. So if that's not within your means, don't do it. Right? But all you can do is basically learn from your mistakes if you make them, and make sure that you continue to reevaluate as the price continues to change. So right now, unfortunately, I would not say there's an absolute direction that is set, but it would make a little bit more sense for the price to pull back based on some overextension that we're seeing, and just generally speaking, we're in the upper range of this 31,000, or sorry, low 31s, upper 30,000 range, and I think it's important to recognize that with us being range bound, the price should pull back until it doesn't. Okay, so just kind of how it works, right? But we'll see here soon. I'm hoping within the next week we'll have a breakout of some sort, either up or down. I'll be happy with it regardless. Because if it comes down, we can add to our position at a lower rate and effectively be able to average down. Make sure that we add to our spot bags, right? If the price comes up, we're in the green, regardless how you look at it, and that's good for the market because then some altcoins we can start having some fun with. All right, cool stuff there. Thanks again for your patience. If you're currently a community member, I recognize that there hasn't been a tremendous amount of signals, and that's just kind of the way it goes. Range-bound activity is boring sometimes, and it's just all about kind of finding the right opportunity. So I hope that you are finding benefit, and thanks again for just being an awesome part of my life. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you on the next one. Take good care.